All right, in our last video, we left off with our federal tax income calculator, and it was left at $1 million for the income, which was definitely not true, and it should look like this. Today, we're gonna add on a new tab down here for the state income tax calculator. So you should have a new assignment in Google Classroom that looks like this. It's a California state income tax for 2023. Maybe in future years it'll be a slightly different year. And it's a very simple, just tax rate, lower bound and upper bound. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that, again, our old assignment for the consumer math tax calculator is open, and make sure that if you have submitted this assignment that you unsubmit so that you have permission to edit it. If you're trying to type in hello here and it's not editing, that means that you accidentally submitted it on Google Classroom, so go back and unsubmit. So now that it's unsubmitted and you have these two tabs open, go ahead and copy all of this information from the California state income tax from 2023 by hitting Command C, and it's ready to be pasted in. We're gonna come over to our old calculator, and we're gonna basically use the same code, and I like the formatting. I essentially want everything the same. So instead of copying and pasting over here, we don't want to ruin the copy that we just had from the other tab. We're going to come down here and two finger or right finger click, and we are going to duplicate this tab. And it should say federal. If you forgot to title this federal, you can just double click here and you can edit it. We are going to double click on our copy of federal, and we're going to title this state. All right, we're still ready to paste in. So there's two ways of pasting. By default, when you paste in Google Spreadsheets, it copies both the values and the formatting. So watch what happens, and this is bad, don't follow me yet. Watch what happens that's bad if I just hit Command V. If I hit Command V, it worked for the most part, but notice that my upper bound, lower bound, and tax rate, the vertical alignment, it's now at the bottom instead of in the middle like my money and my taxes are, and the font color is black instead of white. And you can fix those things manually. Let me teach you how to do this so that you don't have to do as much work. So I'm gonna hit Command Z. There's two ways. There's the way that you say, uh-oh, and you can fix it, which is Command V, and then you can see this paste tool, and you can change it to, again, I told you these both are normally copied, and you can only paste the values, and that would fix it so that these all look nice. Another way of doing it, if I Command Z all of this, I can hit Command Option Shift V, and it will paste without formatting by default. And that's also a shortcut key that works in a lot of other things. So for example, if you're, I don't think you would ever do this, but if you're copying and pasting from Wikipedia for a research paper or something like that, you'd obviously want to paraphrase that unless you needed to copy and paste. You could hit Command Option Shift V and it would get rid of the formatting. So it's the same font color, no hyperlinks, no underlining, etc. It would just keep the text. All right, so notice that the difference between what we've done and what we had, we used to only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tax brackets, and now I've hit Command Shift Z, which is a redo. It's the equivalent of hitting redo, or I guess Command Y also. I think Command Y just continues what I last did. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tax brackets. I have 2 new tax brackets in California, which means I need to extend all of this code over here and this code over here to account for those tax brackets. Luckily, for the max money in each tax bracket and the max taxes in each tax bracket, we can just spread that code down 2 more cells because we got 2 more tax brackets. So I'm just gonna select the cells that have the code in it. So that's D7 and E7. And you can just keep selecting and get these cells using your mouse. Or if you wanna be cool like me, you have those cells selected, and you hit Shift, you hold Shift on your keyboard, hit down arrow key, I don't know why it's not showing over here. And now I have these 6 cells selected, and I'm going to spread my code down by hitting Command D. Again, if you don't want to do it that way, you could alternatively select these cells and then come down here, change your mouse to the crosshairs, and just drag it down 2 cells. Again, don't drag it down 3 cells because then you'll get some negatives. Again, we don't usually spread it down to that very last cell. All right, so we fixed column D and column E. Now we need to fix column F, G, and all of the other ones. This one is tricky. Remember that cell F8 and cell F7 are actually different. We had to modify the code in F8 at the very end because we didn't want to compare against the previous upper bound, because you will never be you'll never be under this upper bound because the upper bound is technically 0 since there is no value. So what I'm going to do, so I don't have to retype things, is I'm just going to copy paste that custom code by hitting Command C on F8 and pasting it into F10. So I'll paste it in F10. If you have an income of $1 million, you should have a $322,725 down in this cell. And now what I want to do is these two cells, F8 and F9, need to be overwritten with the code that is existing in all of these cells up here. Not F2. F2, you can see F2 and F3 are a little bit different, but essentially from F3 on down to F9 should be the same code. So F7 and F8 are different codes. So I'm going to spread from F7 all the way down to F9. I'm going to use the shift and hold down, down. I'm selecting these cells from F7 to F9 and I'm hitting Command D. Again, if you like spreading code just by selecting F7 and dragging it down too, you can also do it that way. I prefer using my keyboard shortcuts because it's a little bit faster unless you're super duper accurate with your mouse. All right, and we keep going. I need to keep spreading down. Nothing was bad over here. This last cell is exactly what we want. I'm just going to hold Shift and hit down arrow key, and hit Command D to spread that code down. Everything here is working. And just to have some sanity of thought, you don't need to do this, but I want to do this to check my work. In theory, this income of $1 million should have automatically gotten sorted into these 9 tax brackets for California of 2023. To check that, I'm going to come down here and say sum of, and it even had the suggestion. That is the suggestion, so I'll hit tab to get that. And yes, okay, cool. It did add up to $1 million, and I'll delete that. Just for sanity, they should automatically get sorted, and they are. So, and how do I add up something that has 270,000 and 322,000 and somehow get 35,000? This number should be a lot bigger. So this is the next cell that we need to edit. So come over here. Oh, sorry, we're not adding those. We're adding these. If I add just 30,000 and 39,000, I should be over 69,000 just with these two cells alone. And this is 35,000, which is definitely not the case. So I need to extend this. If I hit enter, you can see this orange dash outline is only selecting these cells and it's not selecting these two cells down here. So what I can do is I can, instead of ending at this last column at 8, I can come down to the last column of 10, which means I'm going to change G8 and I can just delete that and say G10 and hit enter, and that is the correct amount. My tax percent, we don't need to change anything about you. You're working perfectly, and in theory, now we are done with a state tax calculator. All we did was we copied and pasted some code. So far in this lesson, you've learned how to use previous code and modify it so it works with your new types of tax brackets or new types of numbers. I want to show you something that's even cooler than that. I want to show you how to get these tabs to start talking to one another. So in the second part of the video, I'm going to show you how to make your overview tab, and I'll do that right now. We're going to come down here and we're going to add a new sheet. We're going to double click on sheet 2, the label down here, and we're going to call this overview and hit enter or return. All right, I want the very first thing to open to be the overview tab. Right now, the very first thing is always the first tab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click down and drag the overview tab to the very first tab. So when I first open this, I will first see my overview tab. So here's what I want to type in. I want to be able to say, hey, I have a certain income. I want to automatically see my state and federal taxes calculated. I want to add them together and return to the user all right here. So I want to get this tab to talk to all my other tabs. I accidentally resized the column, so I hit Command Z. So in here, I want to have my income. Let's do a colon right here. And I want to give myself a little barrier here so people know they don't accidentally enter code in the wrong space or their numbers in the wrong spot. And I want my federal tax to be spit out here. And I want my state tax to be returned here. We'll skip some room as well. And then we'll calculate the total tax. We'll add those two together. So we'll say total tax right here. All right. Again, I need to be careful here because this is not an exact word. Maybe instead of saying federal tax, I should be saying federal income tax, because there is a difference between like taxes that you pay on items, your sales tax versus your income tax. So I'm going to be a little bit more specific in my title here, just in case people get confused later if we return to use this calculator. So I'll say federal income space tax and state income space tax. And this is the total income space tax. All right, and you'll notice that when we do that, we have a column that's not big enough. So let me first resize column A automatically by hovering over the intersection between A and B's column, double clicking, and it will resize the column correctly. It looks really janky to have all of these be so far apart from the numbers that we're about to enter over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to align these to the right side. There's two ways of doing that. I'm going to select all of column A in case I add anything else. I'm not going to, but just in case. And the dumb way of doing this is coming up here to the horizontal align tool and clicking right align, and that will work. But I want to show you the cool way of doing it, which is with keyboard shortcuts. I love my keyboard shortcuts. This one is Command-Shift-R. Command-Shift-R will also right align things, just like Command-Shift-E will center align things, and Command-Shift-L will left align things. Command-Shift-L, left align, Command-Shift-E, center align, Command-Shift-R, right align. All right, so things are looking good. Again, I'm gonna enter my income right here. Let's do, instead of $1 million, just to check that a code is working, we're gonna put in $2 million, a slightly different number that's still big. So we're gonna type it 2 with 6 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and hit return or enter. All right, you'll notice that this cell right, I accidentally moved a cell. This cell right here is not formatted as a currency rounded. So go ahead and format it as currency rounded. You should know how to do this from our last video, but if you've forgotten, you select cell B1, you come up here to the More Formats tool, the 1, 2, 3 button, and you come down to the currency rounded option. And it's looking correct. You'll know it's correct because it has 2 commas with 6 zeros and the money symbol out front. There are no cents because it is rounded to the nearest dollar. All right, and I'm going to format everything to look nice. That way, by the very end, when we're done with our code, we'll be done. So let's make everything look nice. The way that I'm gonna do that is I don't need any of the columns between column C and column Z. I want to delete columns C through Z. Again, you should know how to do that from our last lesson, but if you've forgotten, I first need to select column C by clicking on C, so it has the entire column selected. On my keyboard, I will hold Command, Shift, and then the right arrow key to select all the way through column Z, and then I'll two-finger or right-click, and I will delete columns C through Z. And it looks very minuscule, I agree. And I also don't need rows 7 through 1000. So I'm going to click on 7. You should know how to select all the way down through 1000 automatically. But if you've forgotten, it is Command Shift down arrow key. Command Shift down arrow key. I'm going to two-finger click to right click, and I'm going to delete those rows. And it is this very minimalistic spreadsheet right now. I'm also noticing that column B should probably be resized. I doubt I will ever have more than 7 digits in my income. So I'm gonna go ahead and resize you by going to the right of column B and double clicking. And now it is this perfect small size. If you think that this is not a good size for you and you are an old person because you want to be able to read this, by all means, you can select everything and change the font size to 20 and then go ahead and resize your column by double clicking, and you can see this a little bit better. In fact, I think I'm going to do that. It just looks cleaner. Maybe I'm an old person, I don't know. And from here, I'm going to make things look colorful. So one of the things that again, I'm a colorblind teacher, so take my advice for what it's worth. Take it with a pinch of salt or a grain of salt or whatever that expression is. I really like it when my header column, in this case, not a header row, is a slightly darker color than the data that goes into that. So I'm going to start with a color for my income tab. And income is like a nice thing. So what's a nice color? Maybe purple is a nice color. I think green is a nice color, so I'm gonna do a light green 1 right here. And I'm gonna make the actual data from that a slightly lighter color. So I'm gonna come back here to the fill color tool and do a slightly lighter shade. It just looks nicer to me. Same thing for the federal and income tax. I'm gonna make those both bad colors. So bad color typically is red, but I am red-green colorblind along with a lot of other different colors. So I'm not going to choose red. I'm going to choose orange. I can tell orange and green apart. So I'm going to choose this dark orange or dark yellow. Oh, that's a yellow. I'm going to choose dark orange 1. I think that looks nice. And then again, the data that will go in here is going to be a slightly lighter color. So I'll come up here and choose a slightly lighter orange. And then same thing for total income tax. I'm gonna have a slightly darker color and then a lighter color. This is the most important thing in your tax calculator, your total income tax, where we add both these two tabs all together. The most important thing, and this is just an opinion, is usually highlighted in yellow. So I'm going to highlight these in yellow. I will highlight these in yellow. In order to make this a lighter shade of yellow, none of these look nice because they're all like this weird off yellow. So I'm gonna make a new yellow by coming up here to the plus custom tab, and it's on the last color that I had, and I'm just gonna drag this dot a little bit to the left so it's this yellow color. I already did that, and you'd normally hit OK, but I chose this color, and it should automatically be saved to your custom colors, and it's this slight off yellow color, which is a little bit hard to see, but I can see it. I assume you can see it as well, since you guys probably see color better than I can. So another thing that I'm noticing about this that I want to change is I have this pesky vertical line in between income and federal income tax. That's because grid lines are shown. I don't want grid lines to automatically be shown in this spreadsheet. So I'm going to come up to the View tab, I'm going to come to the Show, and I'm going to uncheck grid lines. When I do that, you can see that that vertical line has disappeared. And this is on a spreadsheet by spreadsheet basis. So if I come back to my federal tab, those grid lines are still shown. Grid lines still are printed out. I just don't want the grid lines to be printed out because I want to make this thing look nice. And I think right now that is as good as I want. Some people might want to add something more. Maybe they want to add borders. They could, I'm trying to think of what might make this look nice. Let me play around and see if this would make it look nicer. I'm going to go ahead and add a border surrounding this, maybe in like a really thick border. Does that make it look nicer? And I could do maybe a border here, Command Y to redo the last option. Select this, Command Y to redo it. I mean, I actually think that does look nicer. I'm gonna go ahead and keep that. Ooh, maybe I can have a border in between here. So let me select the income tab. Ooh, yeah, you guys should try this too. Select the income tag, let's go to borders, and I wanna say that the center vertical border, I want that to be not this solid line, but I'm gonna change that to this dashed line. So if I click off of that, that just looks like a nice border. I don't want the line separating the money though, because if I do that down here, I can just hit Command Y, come down here and hit Command Y. I don't know if that looks good. I don't think I really like it. I'm gonna get rid of that dash line. It doesn't feel aesthetically pleasing to me. I'm gonna go all the way back. I think that looks the best to me, where it's just the slightly lighter shade. So that's the distinction between the two instead of a border. All right, so I have this thing looking as nice as possible. Now it's time to actually do the code. So first, this is the user input. The user will input how much income they have. The input, I want this input to go and replace our income right here. So in theory, if our code is working, this income on I2 from our federal tab and this income from I2 on our state tab should be replaced with 2 million automatically from our overview tab. The way that you do that is you select I2, you hit the equal to start a formula, and then you click without typing anything on the keyboard, you just click over here on the Overview tab and select B1. And it will say it's pulling from the Overview tab, exclamation point, because that's how you end tabs in the notation for Google Spreadsheets and Google Excel, or not Google Excel, Microsoft Excel, my bad. And you hit enter and check it out. It is automatically updated to $2 million. We'll do the same thing for our State tab. We'll come over here to the State tab, select I2, type an equal to sign, click back over in the Overview tab and select B1, and it'll do the same thing. Overview, exclamation point, B1, we hit return or enter, and it automatically updates to $2 million. To check that this works, we can come over here and we can enter in a different number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these should have automatically changed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excellent. I don't want to do that though. I want to go back to 2 million to make sure that this is working. All right, now I need to pull this number from our federal income tax slide. So this is where we're gonna be pulling to, so this is where we're gonna enter our equal to sign. We're gonna enter our equal to sign here, and we want this to be equal to that federal income tax total. So we're gonna come back to the federal tab, and that total taxes for our federal tab was this J2 cell, and we hit enter. And you'll notice it pulls from that federal income tab. Same thing for our state income tax. We're going to hit equal to pull from our state tab. We're going to click over on our state tab, select total taxes for J2, select or hit enter on our keyboard, and it gets both of those from those tabs. The very last thing that we need to do for this video is we want to add these two together and enter that number right here. So I'm going to do a formula, which means we have the equal to sign, and I just want to add them together. There's a few different ways of doing that. You could be fancy and do the sum command and select all of this and then say it's the sum. That works. You could also do an equal to sign and just say this number plus this number, which also works. I'm a function guy, so I'm going to make this thing a sum command. I'm going to do the sum command. I select all of those cells and I hit enter, and we are done. I want this to be the final checkpoint that you will be turning into Google Classroom for your consumer math tax calculator. I should call this the income tax calculator. Maybe I'll fix it in years in the future. I want you to leave the income on $2 million so I can check these numbers. I want to check these tabs to make sure that they have the right code. And I'm realizing this after checking the homework from the last time where I was checking these federal tabs. Some people were being lazy, and instead of entering code in here, they manually typed in 50650. I'm going to be paying closer attention, and I'm going to be clicking on every single one of these cells and making sure each one of them is made using a formula. So you have been warned that I'm going to be checking all of this for a formula. Literally everything in here is a formula except for the things that we copied and pasted over here. This is the only thing where it just says 578126. That is just numbers. Everything over here should be purely formula. Similarly, the state tab should be basically pure formula from column D all the way to column K. And same thing for our overview tab. If you just typed in numbers, it's going to be very apparent that you're not pulling from Federal J2 when I just select these tabs and look at your formula bar. All right, with that, that concludes this video. Thank you for watching.